Marshall Chriswell is with us, and this program is intended to be for informational purposes only. The information does not constitute legal advice. The law constantly changes. The information may not be complete or correct depending on the date and your particular legal problem. Each legal problem depends on its individual facts, and different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. Because of that, you should not act or rely on any information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. And he's one of those. He is Marshall Chriswell joining us this morning. Hey.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Wonderful. You were telling me some good news. It's always good to have good positive news. And last week you were able to help with the adoption process in Indiana County Court. I think there are probably people out there who don't realize that there are issues that need to be resolved, and that you are there to help them in that aspect.
Right. And we talk about a lot of different things on this program, different areas of law that I practice in. And this is another one. I handle plenty of adoption proceedings, and I really enjoy that work. Yeah. And I think most attorneys that do adoption work probably feel the same way. It's one of those times whenever you actually get a chance to have a proceeding at the courthouse, and walk out of there, and it's really positive. You know, some of those adoption hearings. You know, all the work that goes up and leading into it. It's a lot of work and a lot of different steps to go through. But the actual hearing that day, whenever the adoption occurs, is really one of the most joyous and happy events that happen in a courtroom.
Oh, I would guess, especially if the child is old enough to realize what's going on.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So, what are some of those issues that have to be resolved? Some of the legwork that has to be done in an adoption.
Well, the first thing is, you know, I get a lot of phone calls from folks that are interested in adoption, and particularly when we're talking about family adoptions, like step-parent adoptions, things like that, where you have a biological parent that maybe is out of the picture for whatever reason, and we know that we're dealing with addiction issues and all sorts of issues that tear families apart. And so if you have a situation where a biological parent's out of the picture, a lot of times I'll get a call from someone, and they'll say, well, I'd like my husband or my wife, you know, we've been married for quite a while now, and I'd like them to adopt my son or daughter because, you know, their mom or dad's been out of the picture for so long. And what they don't realize is that you actually have to go through a proceeding to terminate the parental rights of that other parent. And there is a lot of complexity in that. In some cases, the biological parent is willing, is voluntarily relinquishing their rights, so that can be a little easier. But in a lot of cases, you're dealing with contested termination proceedings where, you know, the biological parent says, "Hey, I don't think that my parental rights should be terminated," and you have you know, a case that sometimes can go to a hearing over those issues. So that's something that I don't think a lot of people realize. Where you're dealing with intra-family adoptions, you know, it can get complicated.
Yeah, and I would guess that you've represented both sides of that dispute.
I have.
Never easy.
Never easy. It can be very, you know, these cases can be very difficult. But the guiding principle, and what I always look at, and of course what the courts look to, is what is in the child's best interest. You know, and there is a very high threshold, a very high burden of proof to terminate a biological parent's rights, and nobody takes it lightly. You know, the attorneys that are dealing with it, the judges that are handling the case, it's a very, very serious matter. But you've got to prove by clear and convincing evidence that this parent has exhibited what we call a settled intention to relinquish their rights. And if they haven't been involved for a period of time and haven't taken on those parental duties, the child deserves somebody to step in that's willing to do that. So, they're tough cases.
Yeah, I would guess. Is that the most common scenario in adoptions? Is that family sort of dynamic with the step parent becoming the adoptive parent?
There are quite a few of those. Whether it's a step parent, a grandparent, a aunt and uncle that are adopting. So intra-family adoption is very, very common. But there's also something that's really common as well is adoptions through like a children youth services, a foster family, an agency adoption where you've got if I were representing the adoptive parents, they are probably a foster family that has had custody of a child, or a lot of times multiple children for a period of time, and they're going through the steps to finalize an adoption. And those cases difficult also, but really, really rewarding as well to see children obtain permanent loving homes whenever they have had a period of instability for, in some cases, years.
Mm-hmm. There are adoptions that we hear of all the time as well of the babies from foreign countries being brought to America and being adopted into a family, or even from within the United States, just the typical infant adoption that a parent gives up their right in the hospital or through an orphanage or in some way, and so a parent finds himself with a baby.
Yeah, absolutely. There are private adoption agencies that handle those, but there always has to be an independent attorney involved representing the adoptive parents. So yeah, there are all those different scenarios, and with the burgeoning reproductive technology we have now, you've got all sorts of situations. Really, you have situations where and the medicine of it and everything, but you've got adoptions where a woman gives birth to a baby and then has to do,
she's a surrogate mother.
The family needs to go through an adoption, or there's a surrogacy situation. So you've got all sorts of situations. Donors, so there are all these situations, and it's interesting because the law, our esteemed legislature, and they, they've got their hands full, but they have trouble keeping up with the technology and with the way that family dynamics are changing. So it's interesting. Sometimes you get a case and you kind of have to figure out, okay, who's mom, who's dad, how do we do this and make a plan moving forward. And so it's
In terms of jurisdiction, in Pennsylvania, is it county by county, or is it state controlled? And then, of course, when you're dealing with jurisdictions like other states, other countries, that complicates matters even further.
It does. Intrastate, international adoptions are very, very complicated. And even in Pennsylvania, going county to county, the law is the same, but the local rules are different. The adoption proceedings take place in the Orphans Court Division of the Court of Common Pleas. Each county has their own local rules for the Orphans Court Division. Each judge has their own procedures, their own way that they want to see things done. And so ensuring that in the months leading up to that adoption hearing, that everything is done properly, that all of the documents are on the record that the court wants to see, that the parents have had the appropriate, in a lot of cases, parents have to have background checks, FBI clearances, child abuse clearances. All of those things are done and placed on the record properly. Home studies are done, all that, and that the judge in that county has exactly what they need, so that when you walk in there for your adoption hearing, you don't have your entire family there with cameras and waiting to take pictures, and the judge says, counsel, I think we're missing something here. You
don't need any surprises.
You don't need any surprises that day. So
no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So for that prospective parent who's sitting there in any of those scenarios that you described, there's a first step, and I would assume that that's that initial consultation that we talk about so often.
It is, and I urge anybody who's thinking about adoption to give me a call, and we can sit down, go through your specific situation. I can set forth exactly what we need to do, how to start the process, and give you an idea of exactly what's going to be involved, and move from there.
I think with every family as well, some might try to take it a few steps further than they should and say, okay, I'm going to do this, and this, and then I'm going to go see the attorney.
Right.
Probably not the best option.
Never is. I just from doing so many of these, I know the lay of the land. I know what we need to put in place, what documents need to be filed, how to get the matter scheduled in a timely manner. And how to move things forward. So it's important to meet with an attorney up front.
And I bet you after a few of these hearings that finally take place and the adoption process is completed, you get yourself a few nice pictures, don't you?
I do. I usually, I always get a picture with the adoptive family, and those end up in my office. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's the good news. That's the happy news. And folks, it's not as complicated as you might think, but you really need to go through the proper steps. Do it the way that it should be done, so that, as you said, no surprises. There's a process that's going to get you through it as quickly as possible, as easily as possible, and as you said as well, most important, in the best interest of the child.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Terrific. Okay, so somebody wants to get started in this process or has any other legal issue that they would like to discuss with you. What do they need to do?
You can always call me at 724-465-5826. Stop and see me in the Atrium Building, downtown Indiana, or go online to westernpalawyer.com.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, because this is the first I've seen you since then. How did the event in Clymer go?
Oh, it was good. It was really good. We had maybe 15 people, which was a nice little turnout. And the great thing was that everybody was really engaged. We were supposed to be there for an hour. We ended up there for, I think, about an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes. Just chit-chatting about estate planning, and I think hopefully I was able to answer a lot of questions for folks. These were, a lot of them were caregivers for family members that had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and then there were some other members of the public as well. But it was a fantastic event.
That's terrific. You have anything in the future planned, or you're going to start to plan for things like that in the future?
I don't have anything planned at this time, but I do enjoy doing those types of seminars, and I would urge any groups. I've done them for the Parkinson's support group. I've done them at different nursing homes and things. So if there's any group out there that has churches, is another one. I've done several churches. And it's always great. I think people get a lot out of it. So if there are churches or other groups out there that are looking for speakers, give me a call.
Very good. Thank you, Marshall.
Thanks.